All for rainbow.
All for rainbow.
All for rainbow.
All for rainbow. All for rainbow.
Welcome to All for Rainbow podcast about different topics regarding LGBTQIA plus themes and activism. Today our topic is non-binary, and with me I have Nuka and Evan. Hi.
Hello. Hi.
So my first question, I guess, would be, what does non-binary means to you?
I guess I'll start.
Mhm.
I guess it means defying the binary and everything harmful that comes with it. Because binary is a social construct, and we don't benefit from it at all. It's not biologically accurate. It perpetuates misogyny, transmisogyny. It creates toxic masculinity. I don't hate femininity and masculinity. I hate that we have made them in the societal gender binary and that they are each one box, each on the opposite side, like they are antithetical instead of deeply connected.
Yeah, I agree with Nuka completely. I would just say that for me personally, it also means kind of freedom, like the possibility, like endless possibilities to be what you want to be. And I know you can be a man or a woman also, like in millions of different ways. You know, the thing is, you don't know that non-binary exists. I didn't know that until I was, I don't know, 23, 24. And it opened up so much. Like I never knew what it meant, what it's supposed to mean to be a man or a woman, and you know, everything that drags along. And then once I heard about non-binary identities, that like just offered so many possibilities to me. And because you know, from a young age, I was always questioning, like, what does a penis mean, that this is a man and a man does this and this and this, and like it just seemed so like I don't know, I was so suspicious of that. So yeah, that's what non-binary means to me.
I was also thinking, I was in one book club and we were reading, I think, King Kong Theory from one French author. And after in the discussion, a question came up: how does it feel to be a woman or a man? If there is like in a sense that you can get, and I'm more and more thinking that like no one actually knows this. It's actually all in the society how it put at those boxes how you should act, and if you look like this, you are this gender. Well, non-binary is also affected by language, I guess. Which pronouns do you use, and how does language affect you, and if you have maybe some solutions when it comes to languages that are gendered?
So yeah, I deal with this topic a lot because it's also part of my job, and we get a lot of questions of exactly about this and about how to make the language like non-gendered, and how, like, which pronouns do non-binary people use. And it's especially difficult in Slovenian because it's so gendered. Like, we can come up with a new pronoun, it's not going to solve a thing, because then we have to change all the other words as we speak or write. So, but I don't want to be pessimistic. I think it's super important for all of us in the community to keep thinking about this and to keep coming with these DIY solutions. It's a process, and it's bound to be changing, and it's gonna change. And maybe some of the things that we come up now, like the underscore, or whichever solutions we come up with, they might change in the future, or they might stick. We don't know. But it's super important to have this in mind and to keep trying. For me personally, in English, I use they pronoun, and it's the only one that I feel comfortable with. Then in Slovenian, of course, non-binary people have to make do. So I just go with both, so on, or with the underscore when possible. But yeah, it's not ideal in any way. Yeah, and also it's super important to always stress that it depends on each individual what they choose, because we can, for example, have similar identities or the same pronoun in English, but then in Slovenian we decide for a different version. Someone can just be on, and someone can prefer ona, or either. So I think it's super important to always ask and listen about a person's pronoun. On top of that, there's a lot of different ways of how we deal with gender in language in Slovenian. It could be a whole nother podcast. But yeah, to just try in general to use terms that are not gendered, that don't assume a gender, I don't mind personally. I always say that in Slovenian, if you use ona, that's okay. I do that as well. But if someone calls me ma'am or miss, or a woman, that's a different thing. Yeah, that doesn't go. So in that sense, yeah, to try to be inclusive when it comes to language and to not assume, but ask and listen. That's for me.
Okay, I guess you've said most of the things, so I guess I'll just explain my aspects, my personal experience. I use he and they pronouns. I think they are both fine. I both in English or Slovene, I don't mind either. Clearly, there's no other option, honestly. And so how it affects me, it really depends on the day. Because obviously, as a non-binary person, you can't pass ever. Because that's being non-binary is not a common thing in society. So if people use gendered language for me that I don't agree with or identify with, sometimes I can be aloof and it can't faze me at all, and I can just pretend like I'm playing this character that fits this norm. But other times I'm still super caught in my internalized transphobia and dysphoria. And so people disregarding my identity do hurt me, and that can stick with me for the rest of the day.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, did you want to say something, Evan?
No, I was just thinking that it's super important for people to realize that these are not just words. It's never just words.
Mm-hmm.
That they affect people. And that don't undermine that or laugh at it or whatever. It's just so important to realize that it's a human behind those words and it's their identity. So it's a must to respect that or just go away.
Yeah, we really made language deeply personal, didn't we?
But yeah, in a way it is personal because also sometimes people I know some friends who get offended if people use not the right pronouns for them, even if they identify as cisgender female, for example. and in some way, because they understand this female male binary system, it's easier for them to change than when it comes to non-binary people.
Yeah, I think pronouns are important to cis and trans people. They just cis people just kind of forget that.
Okay. We were talking about pronouns and assumptions. What are the common stereotypes about non-binary people?
Nuka, you go.
Well, this is a standard. They are androgynous looking, they're skinny, they're white, they're vaguely masculine. I've even seen people online, a lot of people online. They say that non-binary people are just women who want to be something special. And I guess in fiction, they're often, I mean, not like non-binary people are not in fiction often, but if they are like non-human, because humans can't be non-binary. I don't know. Is there any more?
Yeah, for sure. There are plenty. I come up with a few from the top of my head if we're playing this game. So snowflakes, for sure. That we're special snowflakes who don't have anything better to do than come up with new gender identities. Also that non-binary people are always young. That like it's a new thing that we just came up with, and it's never existed before, when we obviously know that it's been around for thousands of years, as long as humanity has been. But living in this white Western world with all of its history and also not so distant history. And that, like you said, Nuka, non-binary people are always like this androgynous creatures. And yeah, it's always white, thin. There are so many norms about this. Or that, like, yeah, we're basically just this, we have to be this genderless blob. That, for us to be actually perceived, we can't talk about passing with non-binary, but yeah, so that you are non-binary enough, right? So we forget about, all the different bodies and all the different experiences that non-binary can be. Yeah.
About this androgynous norm, once I had, we were like discussing, and one of my friends was asking about if you identify as non-binary and go through medical transitioning and perform like your gender through clothes more feminine. Why is this like important to this person? And I think it was mostly because my friend thought non-binary is gender identity where you don't like care about how you look or how you dress, and that it was really tough explaining to them.
Oh wow.
I think it's so important, like, then you can go, Nuka, but I just wanted to say it's so important to realize that, like, non-binary is such a spectrum. There are so many, there's no one way of being non-binary. There are so many different experiences, and also in terms of just, how we experience our bodies and identities, and some non-binary people do feel dysphoria, and but for non-binary people, it's just so hard in the system. And also when we talk about medical transition, especially because, you know, we are not taken seriously. Because, you know, we might change our minds at any point. And of course, the whole system is built on that, like the gatekeeping, on you to fit within these stereotypical ways of, you know, seeing gender, either one or the other. So yeah, I mean, I just want to say that it's super important for people to think, even if you know one non-binary person, that does not mean that you know how all the other non-binary people feel about themselves. So yeah, to have that in mind.
We started talking something about body dysmorphia. How does it feel like when you're non-binary with body dysmorphia?
Dysphoria.
Dysphoria. Oh, sorry.
Dysmorphia sometimes it can also be.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah, well, Evan, you already started, but essentially every non-binary person experiences gender and their body differently anyway. So I can only speak for myself. I do feel body dysphoria, and for me personally, I just think this is me internalizing the binary and still being caught in the societal gender norms. And in actuality, my body shouldn't hinder my gender identity in any capacity, and it's fine just the way it is. But I still have to internalize that. So, because we're still living in a society that hasn't considered that, let alone accepted it. I've decided to kind of meet myself halfway. So I am on hormone therapy at the moment. I've been using testosterone for 3.5 months now. So I'll keep going for a little bit and then I'll see how I feel.
Yeah, for me personally, it's been a process, and it has changed throughout the time. At some point, I did feel like I want to go into medical transition and like at least hormone therapy. But then I felt like no. And yeah, I think it's just super hard to know what you really want for yourself, and what you want so that you can be, you know, perceived a certain way. But anyway, everything is legit, you know. It's just for me then with time, I realized that I don't really need, I don't feel this need to be that much more masculine, and everything that would come with that, it wouldn't necessarily feel more comfortable than the way I am now. Yeah, sure, I would love to be taller and more muscular, always. But there are certain other ways, other things that I wouldn't love so much. So anyway, now I feel, for example, much better in my body than I did, like, for example, 2 years ago. But yeah, it's just also, it really depends where you feel you are on the spectrum, you know, because like a non-binary person can be wherever, and you know, I wouldn't feel comfortable being seen and like being a man. So, and I also hate it when I'm, you know, seen as a woman and, you know, called ma'am and so on. You know, it's just somehow, I don't know, right now I feel this is okay. And if at some point in the future I will feel differently, I hope that the medical system will be ready for that.
Yeah, I also hope it's changed. Okay. So Nuka, you were also before talking something about non-binary person in fiction. How are non-binary people presented in media? Like, I saw some non-binary characters in TV shows, like Theo from The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and Double Trouble from Shira. But again, Double Trouble is not really human.
Yeah,
How do you see it?
I think there's like a lot to be said here. Some of these non-binary representations or non-binary characters still fit the stereotype. For instance, Chef from Steven Universe is super androgynous. Double Trouble is a literal shapeshifter, as you've said. So it's not human, and it perpetuates the idea that non-binary people are just not human. In theory, both of these characters are great or whatever in a perfect world where there's a lot of non-binary representation in general, and the characters are super diverse. But with so little non-binary characters out there, that bigger expectations are placed on the ones that exist. And so in the end, I think it's better, I guess, though, if they make more at least, even if they aren't perfect, so they can help normalize non-binary people in media, and they can be more frequent, and they can be better representations of them. Also, on a different note, Evan, you said something that like I thought about a little bit. Like many famous people came out as non-binary, but many don't look androgynous at all or enough. And so everyone just ignores that aspect about them completely. So in some way, really making non-binary characters that fit the stereotypes at the least makes cishet people uncomfortable and are left to question the gender of these characters, which is awful, but it is something to talk about for sure. I guess that's, yeah.
Yeah, I can totally like sign under everything that Nuka has been saying. It's such a big topic, and I think trans representation in the media in general, like this could be said, you know, for it that it's great, there's more of it, but we need more diverse and more realistic representation. So it's not such a big like flop if there's one bad or, you know, two, three bad or very typical, stereotypical characters. But I also believe in you know, there are a lot of, I mean, a lot. There are quite a few activists, trans activists, non-binary activists who are out in the media and doing the work. So for me, I see that also is very important. You know, for example, Alok and Jacob Tabaya and you know, Travis Alabanza and so on, the people who are not like these white, androgynous, hairless, you know, but also be more what is considered more feminine or femme and so on, you know, so that it's not like this sort of thing that, again, because, you know, sooner or later I think within each group there becomes a new norm, and it's the same with LGBTI. Yeah, I just think it's so important to keep showing, you know, this, you know, also non-binary in all its diversity, and not just be happy with, oh, there's a non-binary character or a person coming out, and then that's that. All the non-binary people are like that. Yeah. I think also for Elliot Page, it's really interesting how, I think in general the media have done quite a good job, at least the ones that we kind of follow, because they have learned their lesson. Not Slovenian media, though. Not the Slovenian media. And mind you, we've been working at TransAkcija on this topic, and we have literally listed the ways of, that are, let's say, respectful reporting for trans people. But anyway, so it's interesting how when a person comes out, even someone as Elliot Page, they've immediately turned them into this trans guy, trans man. And they never said they were that, but it's immediately what happens. So, I think there's a lot of, conversation, and I think it's a starting point, but there's such a long way to go, I think.
Maybe it has also something to do with language and how maybe some people can't be comfortable enough with accepting like that language can change and is changing. For me, it was also interesting when I saw, like, in Shira, Double Trouble never told anyone which pronouns they use. All characters around them immediately started using they, them pronouns. And for example, in this TV show, Billions, but I never saw it. I just saw this scene where Taylor comes into this forum and present themselves to the boss that they are non-binary and use they, them pronouns. It's also like a different level. How I would also like to go more into coming out as non-binary, or you can, if you want, share this, or if you have some advice for someone who wants to come out as non-binary.
Okay, my family is accepting anyway, so I think that's a bad example of an advice, because they're great and I'm super lucky. But I did live in like a group apartment with other people for some time. So I guess with them, I just, after I checked if the Nazis or something, if it's safe or not, I just told them my name and my pronouns, and then just waited to see how they react to that, if they're accepting. For some reason, they all just, after I told them I use he pronouns in Slovene, they just all assumed that I'm not a trans guy, though. They just were all like, oh, so, you're something in between. Because they didn't know, but, they somehow still were nice enough to indulge me in this, because you put the priority on pronouns instead of your identity that can even be super personal. Because it doesn't matter what your identity is. If you'll tell them when you're close enough, if even, but what matters is that they respect your pronouns. So I think that's like a thing that you should put out there as a priority.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we can never control what people think. And, most of the time, I don't think we care what they think. It's just, you can have what you want in your mind. You maybe have a long way to go, but, pronouns and just respecting our names and the language we use, that is something you can do, or, try to do. So, for me, I think coming out is also it's a process for sure. It's a lifelong process. It's never like you come out at one
And then you
point
have to stop
in life.
coming out.
Yeah, exactly, to one person or one group, and that's that. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like that ever, I think, in general with coming out. So I think the most important thing for each person is to, I'm not going to say to be sure and not have any doubts, because we always have so many doubts and thoughts. But it's important for you to, like, you know, more in the sense that coming out to yourself, and then to feel, let's say, empowered enough to share it with the people that you trust and that you feel that will potentially be accepting to you, and, you know, sitting down and talking to them. I think especially in these first steps, it's so important to just like feel strong enough and to have enough info, and to be able to do it in like these little steps, like either by changing, you know, pronoun, or just trying, you know, it might not fit you, but to just have like these people that will do that with you, and of course, like, for example, I don't know, my family is very far from that, unfortunately. But yeah, I do have my circle of people, and if I don't have friends who would not respect my name and pronoun, you know. So it's like, yeah, it's a super important thing. Of course, like, you wouldn't like anyone, like, you know, sometimes I joke around and I call my mom by a different name because that's what she does to me, and, you know, no one would want that, honestly. So yeah, it's kind of a test, like if you want to be in our, you know, like in our actual chosen circle or not. So yeah.
What do you think about like gender broadly? Do you think we can overcome our internal sense of gender, and what would the future look like if we weren't taught about gender in a binary system?
Honestly, I just think identity in gender is so far removed from gender in society and the binary system. I don't really know what I would expect from the future, because like, as this is still in the span of human lifetime. It's still like a thing we're just exploring. I have no idea if gender is something that, if femininity and masculinity is something randomly just in our brain forever. But I don't think we can now really get rid of it. I think we should abandon the binary system and societal gender norms, that's for sure. But I think, I don't know if we'll be ever able to get like rid of masculinity and femininity, because they're now really integral to us already. I have no idea. I just don't know that one.
Yeah, I mean, I can share my 2 cents on this. I somehow, first of all, I don't believe it's about overcoming gender, or
Yeah.
like, you know, that would be the goal of anyone or of activists. I mean, I don't know, for some it might be, but I don't see it that way. What we do try is to question and show how this strict gender binary is affecting all of our lives: men, women, non-binary people, cis, trans. You know, that is the thing that we should change. But I'm always more for this sort of plurality of genders, like to just make more and more space, more possibilities for each person to feel comfortable. Because I'm not even sure. I think I agree here with Nuka. It's really hard to imagine near or far future without gender. I mean, I don't think that's how it's gonna go, because gender is not the only thing out there in the system that is necessary for maintaining the system as it is. So we've got, like, you know, race, class, and so on and so on. And yeah, I think, yeah, it's super important to bring it into education and all sorts of representation, and to update all the education materials from young age. And I know they're doing it marvelously in some countries. And they also, like in Sweden, for example, and Australia and so on, when they talk about even stuff like consent from like when you're 7 years old, you know, and it's in the end, it results in a completely different mindset of a child and of the society in general. So that's what I would be looking for, and not, for example, let's just overcome gender, and once there is no gender, there will be no discrimination. You know, that I don't believe that. Yeah, and also, not any fight for human rights is linear. It's not a linear process. Some people just think it's like, oh, it's so much better today than it was 50 years ago. So, you know, it keeps getting better. It's not like that.
Yeah.
It's not something that happens by itself. There's, you know, thousands of people working relentlessly on that. So I would just say that no, it's never this simple. So I wouldn't want to present it as something that is simple. Yeah, but for sure we have to fight on, and yeah, try to do what we can do.
Yeah, I think gender is just like a part of our identity now as the human race. I don't think it's a thing we can abandon, like we would be going. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually also, I really like this idea for the future that people would be like educated, or would know more about that gender is not just like part of binary system. Okay, so we came to the part of the podcast where I ask some funny off-topic questions.
Now, seriously.
Okay. If you could meet a famous person, who would that be?
Nuka, please.
I don't know any famous people, and I've made it a point to not hold any celebrities on a pedestal. So I have no expectation for them, and I don't think I want to meet any.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that. No, I don't like holding anyone on a pedestal, even super amazing activists that you're following, because we're all humans. We all have a lot to unpack, and we all make mistakes. But since this is more a question of who I would like to meet and talk to, I'm just gonna say some of the first people that come to my mind. So I would love to just meet and listen to Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson. It's not an obvious choice, but I think all the world should hear from them.
Yeah.
So I would love to just be extremely humble and just sit there and listen.
Okay. Next question is, which fruit, vegetable would you like to be if you could choose from any?
A leek.
Okay.
I love the seriousness of your.
That's the first one I thought of.
No, guys, just like a leak. Full
Yeah. I'm gonna cook with it today, and by golly, do I love it.
Oh gosh. Okay. I know this is not something I have thought about in my life. For sure, not a fruit. I don't like fruit. I don't eat it. So it must be a vegetable. Oh wow. Oh wow. Okay.
Take this
Chickpea?
question at face value.
Chickpeas, is that a vegetable?
And what?
Chickpeas and lentils.
Heck yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
sure. Yeah.
So I would do that. We can make a lot of yummy food with that.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, for me, I recently started eating a lot of cauliflower, so I would choose
heck yeah.
cauliflower.
It's cute.
Yeah, and I recently found out that you can eat cauliflower also raw. You don't have to cook it,
What?
Mhm.
That's news to me.
and it's really good.
Okay.
We're all learning something here today.
Yeah.
Okay, the last question would be, what is your favorite game?
And like a video game?
It can be like anything, video game, board game, or like party game.
Go, Nuka.
Oh, fine. Okay, sure. I don't have a favorite video game because like I'm a growing person. I change all the time. But hey, for the sake of it, let's say that my favorite video game sentimentally is Undertale. It's also the game where I like tried out the name that I picked now for myself for the first time. So that's kind of topical and cute.
Oh wow. I don't even know what to say. I like simple games. I'm not very into video games. I would say, I don't know, memory or Scrabble or just something that I'm good at.
That's fair.
Yeah, and I also like me a good karaoke. So
Nice.
yeah, let's just stick with that.
Do we have any karaoke bars in Slovenia?
I mean, no. I especially like it when it's LGBTI space, because these are completely different rules and expectations.
For sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, first maybe we can get that bar, and then the karaoke will follow. Or maybe we can pitch it to Tiffany's and Monaco.
Okay. I think we came to almost the end of our episode. Maybe for the really last question for you, if you have like thoughts or something to say to our listeners at the end.
I hope, it's what I always think and hope for, is if there's at least one person to whom this in any way helps in their own journey or in their friend's journey or their partner's, then I'm happy with it. So I do hope, it might mean something to some people. And yeah, let's keep talking about this topic as well. we are planning a TransAkcija. It's still a secret, but in the next year to bring some focus to non-binary topics, because we've seen there's a lot of interest and we get a lot of questions on it. So yeah, I'm really happy that you invited us to for this podcast.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I had a great time with you. Okay, so this is the end of the episode 8. Thank you all for listening, and see you in the next episode. And for now, I wish you all the rainbows. Bye.
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 All for rainbow.
All for rainbow.
All for rainbow. All for rainbow.
Rainbow.
All for rainbow.
Dobrodošli v podcastu All for Rainbow, podcastu, kjer se pogovarjamo o različnih LGBTIAQ+ temah. In zdaj sem ugotovila, da govorim v slovenščini. Okay. So, welcome to All for Rainbow podcast.